at which time there will be a vote on these articles. And as some people will vote to table, there's always going to be a vote to table. Now, my colleagues on the other side, some of them have alleged that, though this is a great thing, this is a great thing. We're going to have impeachment again. This is a great thing. Let them bring it on. Well, if you truly believe this, then you vote for the articles. You vote against tabling, because there will be a motion to table. So you vote against tabling. All of my Republican colleagues who are saying this, you vote against tabling. And then see what the other side does. Since you are absolutely convinced that this is going to be a benefit
they have filed
to
for
an
an
authoritarian
impeachment.
president. It is not
They are
going to be a benefit.
filing to impeach Trump.
We will take that vote. Those who vote to table will be voting against the articles of impeachment.
Come to find out that
Those
the
who vote
regime had
against
moved the
tabling
weapons.
will be
It was a
voting
total
for
flop.
the articles of impeachment. I said to you, I have some experience in dealing with this. I am the person who laid the foundation for President
Regime
Donald John Trump's impeachment when he was
had
impeached the first
moved
time
the
around.
weapons.
I am using a personal pronoun only to communicate, but the truth is
They
there were
want
other
him out.
persons who engaged in this process with me. I want to tell you about these other persons. I have here something that has been removed from the wall of my office. It is something that indicates who the persons were that participated favorably, meaning indicating there should be an impeachment, when the first articles of impeachment were filed. This is on the wall in my office. The press assumed that it would be only Al Green. They were wrong. They may be right this time. It may just be only Al Green. I will stand alone, because when it's a question of conscience, it's better to stand alone than not stand at all.
I agree.
So the press thought that there'd be probably Al Green and maybe one or two others, which may be the case this time. But believe me, it will not deter me. But what is interesting is I have this on my wall. And by the way, many of the people who are listed here, persons who supported HRES 646, many of the people who supported HRES 646, many of them were listed here. They have a similar document in their offices, and they will have it on their coffee tables. And when people would come in, because this became such an important issue, they were proud to display this and say, yes, I voted to impeach. Yes, I did. That was important. It's going to become important again. Make no mistake about it. It will be important again. And I'm not going to name all of the persons on this first article of a resolution for impeachment, but I would tell you that there were 58. They were known as the first 58. And there's one person that I will mention because I'm proud, and he was proud to have associated with these articles of impeachment. And I remember talking to him right in this area about impeachment. I will not divulge the entirety of the conversation.
He's not the only one on there, though.
The Honorable John Lewis has his name on these articles of impeachment. The Honorable John Lewis. First 58. But the first 58 was not sufficient, and I knew that it wouldn't be. By the way, whenever I say I, assume that I'm saying we, because there were persons who were engaged in helping me. I knew that it would not be enough. And I knew that we would have to continue to build on this to generate a mass such that impeachment could no longer be ignored.
It was a flop.
Because
they did not hit their target.
Who were opposed to impeachment were making it clear that certain things would have to happen.
Let me repeat.
Before there could be impeachment.
Trump's strike was a flop.
Bipartisan support for impeachment.
The regime had already moved the weapons.
Well, let's just say certain things. If I say more, I'll probably say enough such that you'll know who I'm talking about. And I don't care to mention names at this time, but if I'm forced to, I will. But so we move forward with a second impeachment. This was HRES 705. Many members of Congress had something similar to this in their offices. It could have been a very large display that would unfold, and it was on coffee tables. It was placed in various places in congressional offices. I placed this on the wall in my congressional office, along with the other article that I just called to your attention. And this was HRES 705. It did not grow by what some would consider a very large number, but it did move to 66 members of Congress. 66 with HRES 705. And the reason I know members are in possession of these documents that I've called to your attention that were displayed is because I sent them to the members. I sent members a thank you, as we customarily do here. And it was something that they could display in the office. And I had many members.
First, we offer overnight boarding. Your pet will stay overnight in your sitter's home and not only be treated like part of the family, but...
This was not enough. We brought articles before the Congress again. And this time, the number hit what I call a critical mass. It caused people who were antithetical to embrace the idea. And by the way, I never thought that it had to be the exact articles that I presented. I never thought it had to be that, but I knew that there had to be an impeachment. And these articles that I presented had to do very much with invidious discrimination. Invidious discrimination, more about later. So this time, we had 95 people who supported the articles. HRES 498. Now, what's important about HRES 498 is this. When you add the persons who supported HRES 498, supported the other articles, you then move beyond 100 people, well beyond 100 people who are supporting impeachment. Some supported one set of articles and some did not, but then they supported another. So you have HRES 498 with 95 persons supporting the articles of impeachment. Friends, there is but one solution to an authoritarian president that cannot be controlled by the Supreme Court because he flouts the orders of the Supreme Court, that won't be controlled by members of his party because he has control over the party. There's but one solution, and there's but one place where that solution can manifest itself, and that is the House of Representatives. So Congress has become the court of last resort for an authoritarian president. And as such, I put...
Can you remove yourself? Oh, I thought... No, I'm not shouting out nobody. Come in and hit the like button. You came in and my lights did not move. So don't ask me to do nothing until you double tap the screen and hit the like button. Thank you.
Stands for. I know that it has not always lived up to the expectations written in the great documents that support what the country stands for. I know that it has not always lived up to these expectations. But I also know this. It's a country where I can, with due process, with free speech, with freedom of religion. It's a country where I can vote. And it's a country where I can fight to make the difference so that it can live up to these great ideals expressed in these great documents, the Declaration of Independence. the
Megan,
Constitution. And I'm going to fight to
Isabel,
maintain the right
I'm
to
sorry,
fight.
it's way over here.
That's what this is all about. Not fighting in the sense that I'm going to go out and harm someone. Not fighting in this sense that I'm going to use some means of using physicality. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm going to fight with peaceful protest. I believe in peaceful protest. I do not in any way condone persons who go out and harm other people. And I have said as much. And yes, I get all of the backlash that others get when they say as much. But I absolutely will continue to say peaceful protest is the way to make change that can make the difference. So I can do it through peaceful protest, and I'm going to do it. That's the kind of fighting that I'm talking about, peaceful protesting. But I can also do it with litigation. So we have protestation, litigation. I've signed on to many briefs, and I will continue to do so. Protestation, litigation. But we also have something else. We have legislation. That's what articles of impeachment
Why
are.
would he be in jail and Trump's not in jail? He's a convicted felon.
Absolutely. I will never give up my right to protest. I'm going to fight to maintain that right to protest. Protestation, litigation. I believe in the court system. And then, of course, this whole notion of legislation. These are the means by which we can make the difference. I assure my friends, my colleagues, persons, this is official notice. There will be a vote on articles to impeach Donald John Trump, who is now President of the United States. I do it because conscience dictates that this be done, and it has become a moral imperative that we have to proceed with. Now, I close with this. This is something that came to my attention just recently. There are people who believe, I think, that I will be intimidated. They believe that I will be intimidated. Now, these are people other than those who've already made their many threats that have not intimidated me. But there's a new movement afoot. There's a movement afoot now to do what cannot be done as they see it fast enough through the electoral process, meaning my removal from office. They don't think that the electoral process works efficaciously, effectively, if you will, for them. I was saying efficaciously, but let's just say effectively for them. And the governor of my state, while I am in trial currently defending the 9th Congressional District. I've been in trial for many years, so this is nothing unusual to defend this district, to keep this district. It has been difficult. Lots of money has been spent just fighting to maintain the 9th Congressional District. But the governor of my state has now decided that it is appropriate, according to the sources that have called it to my attention, and many have.
Please
many
double
persons
tap
in the legislative body in the state of Texas has
get the
called
like
this to
up.
my attention, has established what's called a redistricting commission or committee. And with this redistricting commission or committee, the governor is going to try, as I'm being told, to draw the lines for these congressional districts so that it will be either difficult or impossible for me to get reelected. So here's my message to those who would stoop to this level of political shenanigans, as I see it. Here's my message to you. The people who elected me are more important than my being reelected. I'm going to stand up for the people who elected me. My reelection is not the issue. You can take me out. There'll be another Al Green. There always is always going to be one more. The world seems to be put together such that there's always someone who will stand up. So you can take me out, but you're not going to intimidate me. and I'm saying this to the governor of the state of Texas, do what you may, redraw the lines such that I can never get reelected. But I guarantee you this, as long as I'm here, I may be censured, but I won't be silenced. I yield back the balance of my time. And still I rise, Mr. Speaker, and still I rise. Proud to be an American, proud of what this country stands for, but I also rise as a person who is censured. I have been censured, but I have not been silenced. So I rise as a unbought, unbossed, unafraid, liberated Democrat. And as such, I rise to speak on a topic today that I believe to be most important to the American people, most important to posterity, most important to the direction of the country, most important to who we are. The topic is about Congress and why Congress is the court of last resort for an authoritarian president. Why Congress is the court of last resort for an authoritarian president. Let me start by saying this that I think is exceedingly important. There are many among us who would manage authoritarianism. They would want to find a way to work with it, to become a part of it if it benefits them, to make it something that is acceptable to many of the people in the classes and perhaps some of the people in the masses. I am not one of the persons who would do this. I believe that authoritarianism, Mr. Speaker, must not be managed. It must be eliminated. This country was founded upon the basic premise that it would be a democratic republic where you elect your representatives to vote for you. This is a democracy. And as such, in this democratic republic, I choose to stand and fight this movement toward authoritarianism. I stand to do so because the greatness of America is not going to be found among a very few who have power concentrated in their hands, or in a single person who has power concentrated in his hands. That's not where the greatness of America is achieved. The greatness of America is achieved by the people having the power and the people making the decisions, by having a Supreme Court that is respected, by having a Congress that is respected, by avoiding what could become authoritarianism that metamorphoses into something even greater in harm to this country than the authoritarianism we face today. So I rise to indicate that Congress is the court of last resort for an authoritarian president. And here's why. It's the court of last resort because when an authoritarian issues executive orders and expects them to be honored, even when the courts disagree, when an authoritarian believes that his orders supersede, supplant, if you will, the rule of law, supersede what has become commonplace in terms of understanding the rule of law in this country. When an authoritarian will defy federal courts and including the Supreme Court, then we have to conclude that the Supreme Court may not be the court of last resort as it should be for an authoritarian president, someone who is assuming power that he should not assume, with executive orders that cannot change the Constitution. When you have a president who, by executive order, believes that he can remove people from the country without due process, and when this president is told that due process must be accorded people before you can take this extreme action, and when this president is told not
Please
only
double
must there
tap
be due process,
your phone or your
but if
device
you
to get the
believe
likes
that
up.
the court has made a ruling that is inappropriate,
Double tap your
that
screen.
the court has made a mistake,
I hit the like
that
button.
you must still honor that court order and appeal, that the appellate courts will then take charge of what you believe to be an incorrect decision by the courts. And
Thank you.
when you
Come on, everybody. That's it. It's 321 people in here. Hit the like
saying
button.
to the country that a court that has issued an order that he does not agree with, but contends is inappropriate for various and sundry reasons, when you see that president say that the judge that issued that order should be impeached,
Chris,
you're now moving into authoritarianism. But when that president
hold your
sits
breath.
with others in his cabinet, and they are
Now
caught on
either you
national
can leave
TV
or hit the like button,
indicating why they can defy the federal courts,
or I'll put you out like I
after
just
having
put
been told
Chris
that
out
you
for talking
have to
smart.
appeal, after having been told that you cannot do what you have done, after having been told that you have to facilitate the return of someone that you have improperly, and according to what members of this administration have said, removed from the country by mistake, then you have to bring that person the relief necessary for that person to raise his hand and say, you got the wrong person. For that person to say, I want my rights of due process.
This is U.S.
under the law
Congress.
in this
He's
country.
a clerk.
So we have a president who believes that his orders, his executive orders, exceed and supersede the orders of federal courts.
Starting the process to impeach Trump.
Because he
The
has
strikes was a bust.
returned a person to this
The
country.
regime
that
had moved
he
the
was told to
weapons,
facilitate
so Trump did not hit
the
nothing.
return of such that
It
he
was
could
a
receive
waste of
due
time.
process, or
So he
just
defied
facilitate such that this person could get
Congress,
due
the
process.
Constitution,
It hasn't happened.
to
The
be a
lower courts
loser.
have told him at the federal level.
He took
The
a
Supreme
L.
Court has told
Trump
him.
took a L.
And the evidence now exists that he understands what facilitate means, because there was a second person who was removed without due process,
He took a L.
removed to another country without due process. And that person is being brought back because the judge in a federal court said, you have to
The
facilitate
regime
the
had
return.
moved the
So
weapons.
they know what facilitate means. They are just
He
being
popped his
defiant.
gums too early,
They're
too
just
much.
ignoring
They moved the
orders of
weapons.
the federal courts.
It was the flop.
They are flouting the orders of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Make no mistake about it, we are now dealing with an authoritarian president that I choose not to manage. I choose to
He may rock. He took a L.
authoritarianism.
He didn't hit nothing. He was
I
just
don't want
lying.
us to try to find a way to get along with an authoritarian. And if the Supreme Court cannot manage this authoritarian president to the extent that he would cease and desist and obey the court's orders,
Sirens have sounded in Tel Aviv.
and if an authoritarian president now has
on Iran
total
escalate. The
control
IDF says a fresh wave of missiles from Iran
Republicans
were fired towards
who
Israel. The
represent this
danger,
House
though, has
and the
passed, at least
Senate.
for now. Iran and Israel
Total
have traded
control of
missile
them.
barrages ever since
so
the US
they're not going to be able to do anything because he manages
conducted
their
3
affairs.
strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. The B-2 bombers used in the attacks have now landed back home.
President Trump is warning Iran not to retaliate against the US, saying any future strikes will use greater force.
They attacked in the dead of night. These pictures from Isfahan.
Let me get it for you, baby, cuz.
The US
And he know it too.
It was the
Surrendered
biggest
their
decision of
sovereignty.
Donald Trump's
They
presidency so
surrendered
far, and his
their
biggest
power
gap.
to make
They called
judicious
it
decisions
Operation
to an
Midnight Hammer,
authoritarian
as
president.
seen in the Situation Room.
Supreme Court can't
This
stop
was how
him.
it looked on Saturday night.
Republicans who control the House and Senate won't stop him.
In a Pentagon briefing.
We have
It was
an authoritarian
incredible
president.
and overwhelming success.
And when you have an
the
authoritarian
order we
president,
received from our commander-in-chief
you
was
do have a
focused,
court of last resort.
it was powerful, and it was clear.
The Constitution, Article 2,
We
Section 4,
devastated the Iranian
Constitution
nuclear program.
No,
makes
you
it
didn't.
New
explicitly
details
clear
reveal the U.S. deception plan.
that
that
we can
sent
impeach.
B-2 bombers flying west
And we
as
can
decoys,
impeach
while
for
the
this
B-2s
type of
involved flew
behavior.
east
Not in
towards
these
Iran
exact
with
words.
bunker buster
Uses
bombs
language
primed
that
and
we're all
ready.
familiar with, high
As
crimes,
the president
or
made a Saturday
misdemeanors,
night return to the White House,
treason,
7 B-2
bribery.
bombers had Iranian
But we
nuclear
have an
facilities
authoritarian
in their
president,
sights.
an authoritarian
They
president defying the
It's believed
courts,
to be Iran's main nuclear
who does not
enrichment
respect the
site,
separation
deep
of
underneath the
powers.
mountain.
An authoritarian president
Massive
who would
ordnance
demean and
penetrators
minimize
deployed here.
the role
Other
of the
locations were
judiciary
hit at Naranz
in our
and
system of
Isfahan.
governance.
U.S. nuclear submarines
With such an
fired
authoritarian
tomahawks.
president,
Tonight I can
Impeachment.
report to the world that the
He's lying.
impeachment, and this Congressional Court of Last Resort is within the power of all 435 members of the House. Because the Congressional Court of Last Resort has to have a prosecutor.
My blood for my country.
A prosecutor, any one of the 435 can become the prosecutor once you see that impeachable actions are taking place.
Community disaster
Any
preparedness.
one of us can become the prosecutor.
Experiencing a natural disaster.
The prosecutor will have
President Trump has
what we will have called the equivalent of a grand jury. That will be the rest of the members of the House of Representatives.
Great again.
That comes as the aftermath of America striking 3 key nuclear sites, which the U.S. Defense Secretary declared an overwhelming success.
command conducted a precision strike in the middle of the night against 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, in order to destroy or severely degrade Iran's nuclear program. And as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs will demonstrate, it was an incredible and overwhelming success.
Well, fears are now growing as experts warn that nuclear material could have been moved by Iran ahead of Operation Midnight Hammer. It comes as satellite images, which you can see on the screen now, reveal that Iran's Fordow nuclear site was severely damaged, but it's unclear as to whether or not it was completely destroyed.
Iran's supreme leader broke his silence in reaction to the strikes on X, stating the enemy had made a grave mistake.
So Keir Starmer is now calling for Iran to return to the negotiating table.
Well, joining us now, former Conservative Special Advisor Oscar Redrop and Defence Secretary, Defence Correspondent, I can't see this, Robert Fox from The Standard. Robert, here's what I want to know, first of all, is just what are we dealing with when you think of these bomb busters that they were? What exactly do they do? How powerful are they?
Well, they weigh 15 tons and they can only be carried by the known carriers, the B-2 bomber, which did this 37-hour round trip, which was 7 of them. Or, it's amazing, you can do it with quite a slow, over-the-ground transport Hercules, a
I don't know how to act.
which can carry a bomb that big and risks itself, and you would have to go in from Jordan. So But this is the first time it's been used in anger. They've tried something like it with mixed success in Afghanistan, and it depends what you're trying to break through. Because you say this great weight of this thing, the MOP, the GBU-57, as it's known, the massive ordnance has to go down, and it detonates at different levels and finally explodes once it has penetrated probably 60 yards, provided it's sand. Solid rock, which they've got at Fordor, they are not so clear about, and I'm still wondering just about whether they may have to go round again.
How much damage they've actually done. But as you were trying to explain there, boom, this penetrates like up to 60 meters of concrete, right? Boom. And it explodes a number of times on the way down to open up a passage.
And it's the triggering system that is so important. It is not nuclear. It is the most powerful bomb next to a nuclear bomb.
So what you're saying is, whatever the defense secretary in the US is saying there or not, they actually aren't sure what they've done, how much damage they've caused, if they've neutralized Iran or not.
BDA. Battle Damage Assessment.
Right.
That's what's going on. And as far as I can make out, as of last night, it was not complete. You have to do it
not
with
complete.
With goodness knows
It
what.
was an L.
Oops. And I suspect you may have to do
It was an
with
L.
intelligence on the ground.
Trump
you
took an
kept
L.
the doors in and blocked the entrance to a lot of the underground tunnels.
So we're
Then
going
there
to
is
start a
secondary
war.
question where it's actually becoming the major
wasn't
question
even
now, which you've
successful.
raised, Damon, is where has the gone? Because it was assumed up until the weekend that over
I don't care
half the
what you
capacity
are. I'm talking about from my country.
storage
It was an
possibly
L.
of refined or being refined uranium, and possibly even above 60%, you get to
And he
90%
bypassed Congress.
grade,
And then he
that
took an
is
L.
nuclear
Hit the like
weapons
button.
grade.
Double tap your screen.
50% was thought to be in Fordor. And yet, there are very clear, very graphic pictures of a convoy of about a dozen trucks taking stuff out of Fordor in the middle of the weekend.
That's what they're saying. Don't get mad at me because Trump went about it the wrong way. He don't never do nothing right.
It's very clear, particularly
What's
from
wrong
the Air
with
Force.
It's
that
an
they are
L.
saying
It
that
did
they
not
are not
destroy
sure
it.
where the stuff, by that I mean the
Don't get
refining
mad at me.
uranium is right now.
Oscar, let's bring you in at this point, because we're hearing that there was a phone call last night between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. Do you think he feels blindsided by what we saw over the weekend?
Why would he feel blindsided?
What influence has got? What's the point of a phone call?
No.
Why would he be blindsided and he didn't do what he was supposed to do?
If we talk purely about the politics of this, we are as irrelevant as I can remember in my lifetime on this. If anything, I'd say it's slightly worse than irrelevance, because in the week leading up to the weekend, all we were hearing from the Prime Minister was de-escalation, very sceptical. We've been on the phone. We felt very sceptical that there was going to be a US attack of any sort.
Well, he didn't have no proof, Joshua, that it was a success.
When I say it's worse,
so that was a speculation. He started the speculation when he thought, oh, it was great, oh, it was beautiful, all that stupid shit. He speculated that he hit the target.
He doesn't have to listen to anyone.
Exactly, but the
He didn't have no
is that
proof.
our special relationship, as we often like to call it, we reach moments like this now, and global security is the way it is, and we are in a pre-war age. I think, we have been for the last few years. We are very much in a war age at this moment in time. The fact that our greatest ally in America, our strongest ally in America, clearly doesn't pay a jot of mind or difference to what we as a country take seriously and believe on the global stage is hugely embarrassing for the PM, because he's spent a lot of political capital in this relationship over the last few months.
And he actually can't give a straight answer when he's asked, do you support the US action over the weekend? He can't say yes or no.
Well, I mean,
Deadpool. How am I making it up and they telling you right now?
We don't support it.
Let me get you out of here. You stupid.
And this is a depressing thing to say.
They're telling you right now, and you telling me I'm making it up.
In terms of the influence it has over America, and then as a result, what's happening in the Middle East, it's almost irrelevant what our Prime Minister comes out and says. That's been proven this week, and I think that's really quite embarrassing.
Let's go to Republican commentator Nora Lee Knudsen on this one. Nora Lee, we're talking about Mr. Trump and does he listen to him, whatever. What about the Republican Party?
It's always somebody else's fault.
With him?
It's a very hard place that the Republican Party is in right now. I think he's tried to quiet a few of the dissenters, but on the whole, as a Republican, as a patriot, I feel betrayed by this decision. And I think now that he's talking about regime change and making Iran great again, his big...
So now it's my fault. These people are telling you right now, and you gonna blame me. Who's slow? They telling you. She's a Republican. She feel betrayed. Who fault is it? Y'all better stop always passing the blame. That's y'all are very good at that. Y'all, he took a L. I'm not, whoever is in there telling me, oh, it's a Democrat's fault, y'all slow, you. No, he took a L. Shit.
Is going to be very disappointed because they voted for Trump to make America great again. No new wars, no adventures, no failed 2003 Iraq war. This will be a disaster for our economy, for our budget deficit, and for our security. There's been security warnings issued overnight for Americans abroad. Iran has threatened to activate sleeper cells in the U.S. I feel less safe as an American now living in London. It reminds me of 2003. I was living in Luxembourg. I felt less safe.
There's also a split now in Trump's top team, isn't there? Because he's talking about regime change, which is directly opposite to what J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth were saying just at the weekend.
I agree. I think
he didn't hit the target.
It's an absolute mistake that we got dragged into this.
He didn't stop nothing.
It's going to be an absolute distraction to what his platform was, what he got voted on, and it's going to hurt him in the midterms as well. But very concerned where this is going. I don't know if he's using the regime change as a way to try to get Iran to the negotiating table. And I hope maybe that's the case. But quite frankly, we've just destabilized the Middle East and we destabilized the world.
But Robert, listening to Nora Lee there, and people think about, oh, we shouldn't have done this and whatever. But you cannot leave Iran with the capability of having nuclear arms. So that was going to have to be bitten at some stage.
My eyes are slightly watering on all this. We're talking...
Why is Trump...
Apartment
why does he know
She's definitely used...
My eyes
he's
are
gonna come up with some excuses in the morning.
We're talking...
And then y'all gonna go along with the
stage.
excuses.
We're talking politics.
And then y'all gonna change y'all storyline when he changed his.
To Starmer, if it wasn't to Starmer, wouldn't have been to Lamy, but it would have been to Healy. What are you going to do if they mine the Straits of Hormuz? You've got stuff in there. You claim your allies there. I put that to Healy. Theoretically, off the record, I see no reason why it should be. When we were on a visit to the AWE, the weapons establishment, very privileged, but not done it for 10 years. And Healy looked at me as if I'd gone mad in suggesting
I didn't give it
Iran
to you. Probably how many times you commented.
And the Straits of
If you
Hormuz
won't
stop
comment,
the exports of gas and oil from
it won't be there.
I wondered, who was in a parallel universe looking at him. And I do think that the Brits would have been asked
that's how many
upstream,
times have you made a comment,
if
John?
things go wrong?
I didn't put that there.
No, it's lawfare, not warfare.
It's automatic based on how many
line,
times
very much in line with his Attorney General. And you say practically, and if it really does go bad, we and the French particularly, and the Germans and the Italians, they're the principals, we've got forces there, will be asked to help out, particularly if you get this multi-faced war of revenge from Iran.
They did not hit
this
the
very
target. They did not.
They will get the Houthis going. They won't just attack American bases. I think that will be the fate. They will do almost anything else. Now, to go back to the beginning of this, they've got to ask themselves, particularly these people who feel undermined the Republican split and this, that, why did Trump do it? And I think Trump was caught by what he was being told by Israeli aerial intelligence, because what was happening in the skies already and is continuing, which is that the Supreme Leader and the Council of Guardians, the top people, have decided to go for a mass campaign, and the word which I haven't heard, but their term is missile.
Okay, well, go somewhere else, Baker. Bye. Go somewhere else where you can hear.
Couldn't withstand that for more than a week or 10 days. I don't know what the
I'm going to talk on my platform.
And I think who was Trump
so go somewhere else where you can hear.
I really do think he was listening to 2 or 3 key military on this. It's very interesting how he brushed Tulsi Gabbard aside, but I am damn sure he would have been talking to the CIA operatives on the ground.
I sure am, Alex. Bye.
Robert, thank you for that. Nora Lee, thank you very much as well. And Oscar, we'll get the 3 of you back again after 7 o'clock and just re-engage with all that you're saying and what the reaction is to that. So for the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, let us know what you think on that one, and we'll try and share as many as we can in the next hour. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Let me see the other one. Hold on. And please understand, I'm going for him. If somebody's in here and they're asking the question, I'm going to respond. If you don't like that, then leave. Your comment is going to make me continue to talk. So, hush. I mean, I don't know what make you think that that's going to stop me from talking. That's your daddy, King Trump. That's your daddy, broke back. What you mean? What you mean? Shit. That's your daddy.
And to our top story this morning, President Trump has hailed bullseye strikes on Iran as he calls for regime change in order to make Iran great again.
That comes as the aftermath of America striking 3 key nuclears.
Hold on. Yo, point it to me. Y'all get my likes up.
A tight-knit college and a city of opportunity. Washburn offers the best of both worlds. Close.
And basically told them that he made a decision, in principle, to go in and join this. Netanyahu asked, okay, how can I help? And one of the things Trump asked him is for Israeli help to clear the way for the B-2 bombers to strike
persons, this is official notice. There will be a vote on articles to impeach Donald John Trump, who is now president of the United States. I do it because conscience dictates that this be done, and it has become a moral imperative that we have to proceed with. Now, I close with this. This is something that came to my attention just recently. There are people who believe, I think, that I will be intimidated. They believe that I will be intimidated. Now, these are people other than those who've already made their many threats that have not intimidated me. But there's a new movement afoot. There's a movement afoot now to do what cannot be done as they see it fast enough through the electoral process, meaning a removal from office. They don't think that the electoral process works effectively, if you will, for them. I was saying efficaciously, but let's just say effectively for them. And the governor of my state, while I am in trial currently defending the 9th Congressional District. I've been in trial for many years, so this is nothing unusual to defend this district, to keep this district. It has been difficult.
You are looking live at Jerusalem, where earlier today Israeli Prime Minister
the governor of my state has now decided
to the Western Wall to pray and to thank God
it is appropriate,
that Iran's
according to
nuclear
the
weapons
sources that
program is no more.
have called it
On
to my
Saturday
attention,
night,
and
U.S.
many have.
Congress destroyed
persons in
Iran's
the
underground
legislative
nuclear
body in the
facility
state
at
of Texas
Fordo
have
and
called this to my
finished the
attention.
job that the Israeli Air Force had started at the
redistricting
Natanz and Isfahan sites. Bibi and Trump have joined forces once again to make history and to usher in a new Middle East. I'm Eric Stakelbeck, and this is a TBN special report. During that visit today to the Western Wall, Bibi recited a special prayer for President Trump, who made the bold decision to come alongside Israel and put an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions. On the president's order, 7 American B-2 stealth bombers traveled over 7,000 miles from the state of Missouri all the way to Iran to carry out Operation Midnight Hammer. The bombers flew nonstop and refueled in midair. They returned to Missouri today after what President Trump called a very successful attack and a job well done. He spoke to the American people from the White House last night.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
That's a lie.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, as President Trump thanked God publicly, Jerusalem landmarks were lit up with the red, white, and blue Saturday night in appreciation of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief's bold move against Iran. Here was Prime Minister Netanyahu reacting to the news that Iran's nuclear program had been destroyed.
Congratulations, President Trump.
They lying.
Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what...
Nope.
Among us.
Those are old lies.
Who would manage authoritarianism. They would want to find a way to work with it, to become a part of it if it benefits them, to make it something that is acceptable to many of the people in the classes and perhaps some of the people in the masses. I am not one of the persons who would do this. I believe that authoritarianism, Mr. Speaker, must not be managed. It must be eliminated. This country was founded upon the basic premise that it would be a democratic republic where you elect your representatives to vote for you. This is a democracy. And as such, in this democratic republic, I choose to stand and fight this movement toward authoritarianism. I stand to do so because the greatness of America is not going to be found among a very few who have power concentrated in their hands, or in a single person who has power concentrated in his hands. That's not where the greatness of America is achieved. The greatness of America is achieved by the people having the power and the people decisions, by having a Supreme Court that is respected, that is honored, by having a judiciary that is respected, by having a Congress that is respected, by avoiding what could become authoritarianism that metamorphoses into something even greater in harm to this country than the authoritarianism we face today. So I rise to indicate that
This is the story of the one.
Congress is the court of last resort for an authoritarian president. And here's why. It's the court of last resort because when an authoritarian issues executive orders and expects them to be honored, even when the courts disagree, when an authoritarian believes that his orders supersede, supplant, if you will, the rule of law, supersede what has become commonplace in terms of understanding the rule of law in this country. When an authoritarian will defy federal courts and including the Supreme Court, then we have to conclude that the court may not be the court of last resort as it should be for an authoritarian president, someone who is assuming power that he should not assume, with executive orders that cannot change the Constitution. When you have a president who, by executive order, believes that he can remove people from the country without due process, and when this president is told that due process must be accorded people before you can take this extreme action, and when this president is told not only must there be due process, but if you believe that the court has made a ruling that is inappropriate, that the court has made a mistake, that you must still honor that court order and appeal, that the appellate courts will then take charge of what you believe to be an incorrect decision by the courts. And when you see a president saying to the country that a court that has issued an order that he does not agree with, but contends is inappropriate for various and sundry reasons, when you see that president say that the judge that issued that order should be impeached, you're now moving into authoritarianism. But when that president then sits with others in his cabinet and they are caught on national TV indicating why they can defy the federal court's orders after having been told that you have to appeal, after having been told that you cannot do what you have done, after having been told that you have to facilitate the return of someone that you have improperly, and according to what members of this administration have said, removed from the country by mistake, then you have to bring that person the relief necessary for that person to raise his hand and say, you got the wrong person. For that person to say, I want my rights of due process under the law in this country. So we have a president who believes that his orders, his executive orders, exceed and supersede the orders of federal courts. How do I know? Because he has not returned a person to this country that he was told to facilitate the return of, such that he could receive due process, or just facilitate such that this person could get due process. It hasn't happened. The lower courts have told him at the federal level. The Supreme Court has told him. And the evidence now exists that he understands what facilitate means, because there was a second person who was removed without due process, removed to another country without due process. And that person is being brought back because the judge in a federal court said, you have to facilitate the return. So they know what facilitate means. They are just being defiant. They're just ignoring the orders of the federal courts.
And there will be no result.
They are flouting the orders of the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
This is the decision.
Make no mistake about it, we are now dealing with an authoritarian president that I choose not to manage. I choose to eliminate the authoritarianism. I don't want us to try to find a way to get along with an authoritarian. And if the Supreme Court cannot manage this authoritarian president to the extent that he would cease and desist and obey the court's orders, and if an authoritarian president now has total control of the Republicans who represent this House and the Senate, total control of them. So they're not going to be able to do anything because he manages their affairs. They have become people who look for a sense of direction. He's become their North Star. He's become the means by which they conclude that they will go this way or they'll move in that direction. So they can't do anything because they have surrendered their sovereignty. They've surrendered their power to make judicious decisions to an authoritarian president. Supreme Court can't stop him. Republicans who control the House and Senate won't stop him. We have an authoritarian president. And when you have an authoritarian president, you do have a court of last resort. The Constitution, Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution makes it explicitly clear that we can impeach. And we can impeach for this type of behavior, not in these exact words. Uses language we're all familiar with: high crimes or misdemeanors, treason, bribery. But we have an authoritarian president who is defying the courts, who does not respect the separation of powers, an authoritarian president who would demean, minimize the role of the judiciary in our system of governance. With such an authoritarian president, impeachment.
I need for y'all to get the lights up. I am about to go to
Congressional Court of Last Resort